Alright, hello guys, and in this video I want to talk about my build for the plasma gun for the veteran class in Warhammer 40,000 Darktide. Now, I just want to say that there's a couple things I want to say at the beginning before we dive deeper into it. First of all, this is like optimized for Auric level difficulty or Auric level content. Um, I can't I tried it in Havoc or I can't try Havoc. The problem is I'm running on an older rig, and for some reason when I go into Havoc I drop like frames like very hard. Like the performance is really bad for me in Havoc. In Auric it's still manageable. Like this is a temporary issue though that I'm working on. I'm working on getting a better PC. But for now, like if I try and go into Havoc, I'm getting like it's not uncommon that I get down to 20 frames per second and yeah, it's just and not only that, but I also get input lag. Like sometimes I'm not like yeah, Havoc is like I'm trying Havoc, but I really have to play with a build that pretty much just like is like a no brain build, like a flame psych or something. If I try to play anything that requires more active interaction, like requires you to have more actions per minute, then it's not good. But Auric content is where I'm playing right now the most. I'm also trying to get a few penances for Auric, and so that's what this build is for. Now I guess you can try and scale it for Havoc level content, but yeah, I don't know how well I don't really know the breakpoints in Havoc at high levels. So, anyways, that's the first thing. The second thing is actually why I decided to do this video. Well, you see, a few weeks ago when I came back to Darktide because of a friend, anyways, I looked at some meta builds and they were all like running the plasma gun, right? And so I looked into the plasma gun and I found out that recently it got a nerf to its light attack cleave and the charge attack got a little buff. It's like you consume less ammo now. Anyways, and I was like, okay. And at the same time, another YouTuber, Big Dom, made a video detailing the plasma gun. I'll have a link in the description to his video because he goes more in depth about the plasma gun. So, yeah. But, like that kind of made me wonder what's the best way because I watched his video. I watched Big Dom's video like 4 or 5 times maybe. And just to try and understand how the plasma gun should be used. You see, the main problem with the plasma gun right off the bat is that it's like a really good gun, right? It's like considered S tier meta by a lot of players. And so the thing is, it's all like just the base stats, right? Without any kind of blessings or whatever perks. It's like a 90% gun, right? Like it's so good. It's like the reason why it's considered really good is because it's good in pretty much every single situation. It's got good horde clear, it's got good single target damage. It's also, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the only weapon where just on the base attacks has the highest carapace damage. Like just the base left click like light attack just 537 well on the body if you go for a weak spot, but you try and find a weapon, even the what is it, the revolver, actually it's a little, well, let's look at the bolt gun or bolt pistol. Even the bolt pistol doesn't do as much. Well, I mean, it has less base damage to begin with. Let me see if I find a bolt gun. I don't know if I have a bolt gun here. Yeah, I do have this one. It's not the best damage, but 533. And you let me know. You let me know which weapon can beat the plasma gun on a carapace hit, right? So this thing does like the highest amount of damage per shot to pretty much any enemy in the game, and so on. So that's why the plasma gun is considered one of the best range weapons. It's because it's like A tier in pretty much every situation, and because it's like pretty much a like jack of all trades that is actually decent in every single situation. It's actually S tier. That's what it is. The problem is that because you're working with such a good base weapon, it's like trying to reach that last 10% of trying to make it like a perfect weapon is a lot harder than, let's say, if you're taking like a 5 out of 10 weapon and you can slap on blessings or talents or perks to to get it a lot higher, like get it to a 7 or 8 out of 10. Anyways, that's kind of the problem personally I encountered with the plasma gun. Is like I'm trying to like min max it further, but because it's already kind of good, it's harder to min max it further. So, anyways, so then I thought about, well, how should you utilize the plasma gun? Because if you kind of understand how you should use it, then we can kind of optimize it for that usage. So essentially, I went with like 3 different builds here. Are they in the order? Okay. So the first build here is basically utilizing the charged attacks, right? Because of the nerf to the light attack cleave, you're like, okay, well, let's just completely dump the light attacks. And then this is what I tried to put. So I dumped thermal resistance, and I max out charge rate. So I have everything else maxed out, so I have to dump something thermal resistance. So I get charge rate. I believe the charge rate on a is like a difference of like 0.2 seconds from 60 to 80. So you save about 0.2 seconds on the charge speed. And with volatile, it increases it a little bit more. You save another 0.2 seconds. So with volatile and a max out charge rate from 0 heat, because honestly with more heat, volatile is not as good. But starting from 0 heat with volatile and charge rate, you're saving 0.4 seconds of charge time. Now, this build, the idea behind this plasma gun is you take focus cooling to compensate for the low thermal resistance. So, and then what you would have to do is get weapon specialist. So weapon specialist, so you guarantee a crit because you only need like 3 stacks to guarantee a crit. You pull out your plasma gun, you charge it super fast, and you you just shoot through a bunch of guys because it has near infinite cleave. Well, not really, but it has really high cleave. It's a brace shot, so it does even more damage and everything like that. So I thought, okay, that's pretty good, right? In practice, it doesn't really work that well. The primary thing is because veteran is mostly specialized in killing specialists and ranged elites. You don't want to, like, if you do a brace shot to kill an elite, it's like overkill, right? Like, and so you still need your left clicks. That's the thing with the plasma gun. It's like, even after the nerf to the light attack cleave, light attacks are still, like, you're still gonna need them because you're gonna need to take care of specialists, of like of like elites and all that. So you still need those, but it's like it's more like it's mandatory to do left attacks or light attacks. I keep mixing up left click and light attacks, but you're pretty much always going to be using light attacks, so the left click, and the charged attacks are more like optional things where you need a big burst of damage, especially if there's a big line of enemies coming at you, or whatever. Like, that's where you use your brace shots, but that's like it's like 80% light shots. And so this is why this one really didn't work out that well. Is, first of all, from like the concept of the veteran, you're supposed to, like, and this is the only cooldown regeneration node you have with the veteran anyways. So it's like you kind of have to take this and you kind of have to make the most use out of it. And so, yeah. Now, the only thing is, like, I wondered how much ammunition you were saving, or how much damage you were saving. Oops, that's the wrong thing. Per light attacks versus charged attacks. And basically, it's 7 damage difference, okay? So this is, again, on the base damage without any modifiers, just the base damage. It's 7 damage difference that you're getting. You're getting essentially 7 more damage per ammo with a charged attack. Now, that might not seem a lot, but if we pull out the calculator, a plasma gun without any ammo modifiers has 270 rounds base, like 135 in your first mag and then 135 reserve. And it's actually, 1,890 damage for a full load of the plasma gun that you're basically missing out on. So yeah, so I'd say that the charged attacks, you can mix them in if you notice that you spend too much ammunition and you're running low on ammunition. But other than that, light attacks are still superior in my opinion. Okay, so then it's like, well, the charged attack is not really the way to go, so this build is not good, right? So what do we have options? Well, we have the classic Gets Hot and Rising Heat, and then there's the optimized cooling with Blaze Away. Now, and then I'm like, okay, well, let's see the left click spam, because if you want to use optimized cooling and Blaze Away, the best way to do that is if you just pull it out and you just left click spam until you overheat, right? So then I'm like, okay, well, let's see. So I did some math here, and basically, if you just left click spam, optimize cooling and blaze away will give you the most amount of damage in a salvo. Because with Rising Heat and Gets Hot, you get a maximum of 8 shots, which like again, it's a bit hard to do the crit chance and crit hits, but I gave the last 3 shots a crit chance, so they have the highest bonus, because that's where the Rising Heat is also, or not the Rising Heat, the Gets Hot is also at the highest, so you're getting the highest possible damage on the final 3 crits. And then I also gave it the first crit as like if you're running Weapon Specialist to guarantee a when you pull it out, you get like a first crit. So this is pretty much like I'd say this is pretty average. I tested it without any other talents, like without counting reciprocity or whatever. You're getting about 3 crits per salvo. So that's what this represents. On average, sometimes I'd get 2, sometimes I'd get 4. So again, it's hard to verify here, but and with optimized cooling plus blast away, you're getting the equivalent damage of 16 shots. And then I wanted, okay, to see, well, is Rising Heat more ammo efficient? And it's not. They're about the same. Actually, Blast Away comes out a little bit on top for ammo efficiency per damage, or damage per ammo, I guess. But it's pretty close. That I think, again, it depends if you get more or less crits. But it's not like a big win for Rising Heat or Gets Hot if you're just for ammo efficiency, because you're thinking, oh, because you're doing more damage per shot when you have a crit. But it's actually not the case. So then I'm like, okay, well, Blast Away and Optimize Cooling is the way to go, because that just gives you the most damage per shot here. And I actually have a build that uses that one. Yeah. The problem with this build, though, is that I found out I was running out of ammo fast, because in a single salvo, you're shooting 12 shots. That's 36 ammo. And even with the fully loaded talent, which gives you more ammo, I always found out, like, I was low on ammo. I didn't run out of ammo completely, because of course I still have Survivalist and there's still ammo pickups throughout the match. But I was getting like dangerously low on ammo. So I'm like, okay, that kind of sucks, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, the reason why initially I thought Gets Hot plus Rising Heat wasn't that good is that it's only good if you're able to maintain like above 85 heat, right? So only if you have above 85 heat, but 85 heat is hard to maintain. If you have a pause in the fighting and all that, then you're gonna drop heat and all that crap, right? So, and then I'm like, okay, well, you have to like spam left clicks just to maintain your heat, and that's wasting ammo. So it's like the ammo efficiency is actually worse than Blast Away in that case, because to maintain your heat, you need to fire a lot, whatever, right? Until I figured out you could just heat up your plasma gun by just bracing it for a charged shot, right? So you can just keep doing this, and we're not wasting any ammo, and we're increasing our heat. And the thing with the plasma gun is the higher the heat, the more slow it's gonna cool off. So you definitely want to like pump it back up. And with a light attack, you need to be at least 95 or under to not overheat. But yeah. So with that in place, now you also have to keep in mind your other stacks. Like if you have Skirmisher, you need to do this a bunch of time. If you have the other thing, where if you have Agile Engagement, you also need to do that. But so it's very high, like APM for sure, right? But again, I'm playing Auric, and that's usually fine. If I get a better rig, When I get a better PC, I'll try Havoc again with this build and see if it works. But yeah, so basically the fact that you can always kind of charge up your plasma gun's heat by not firing a shot like that, this pretty much solves the problem I had initially with Gets Hot and Rising Heat, where it was hard to maintain those stacks. But now with this, you can maintain it. Usually what I do in a game is I charge it up all the way to 100%. We go into a horde, you spam, then you ping a specialist, because I also have like focus target, and then boom. Well, I missed the target, but I got the 2 guys behind it. But you know, you get the idea. It's like, it plays, and I'll show you later in the build, but it plays very similar to the meta plasma gun, where with weapon specialists, but we're actually not taking weapon specialists. As you saw, we're taking focus target. But it plays very similar because you still have agile engagement, so you still want to switch between your melee and your plasma gun. Anyway, so that's why it's like I came around to Gets Hot and Rising Heat in the end. Like I said, initially I wanted optimize cooling plus blast away, but then the ammo problems, and then I'm like, once I figured out, well, again, for some of you it might have been obvious that you can just charge your heat with your brace shot, your charge shot, without actually spending ammo. I was like, well, hold on a second, that might be actually better, you know? Okay, now quickly before I move on to the rest of the build, I just want to mention that the Blaze Away, I keep saying Blast Away, but Blaze Away and Optimized Cooling, this is good against bosses. At least it's better than this version against bosses. Because, and that's why I have the unyielding enemy damage here, because with Blaze Away you really need to like keep spamming left click. Like you cannot stop, otherwise you drop all your stacks. So if you want to make the most use of Blaze Away, you need to just keep spamming left click. And of course you're not going to be very accurate, and you're not going to be able to get 12 shots. I mean, maybe in certain situations where there's a big mixed horde, you're going to get a lot of value from 12 shots, but usually after a few shots you pretty much nuked everything anyway. However, the only enemy that's going to take a lot of damage is going to be monstrosities and so on. So that's where this gun outperforms, let's say, the Gets Hot variant, because it's able to do a lot of boss. It's like pretty much the only build that can do a lot of boss damage. Now, again, I don't know how much boss damage it actually does. I tried to look a bit into it, but again, it depends on the game you get, like which teammates you're matched with and so on. So it's a bit hard to see, but this is theoretically the best boss damage plasma gun setup you can have. Blaze away, and then you just keep shooting at the boss. And yeah, but for general purpose, like pretty much anything else, like this is why I have elites and flak. You don't want to be shooting into carapace. That's another thing. That's a thing that if you do watch Big Dumb's video, he does talk about this. A lot of people do put carapace, and yes, it does have the best damage against carapace out of all the ranged weapons, but your cleave is severely limited, and I think this is the one unique feature about this gun is its high cleave, even on a light attack. You see, the problem with some of the other ranged weapons like a flamer or a inferno staff is that they have infinite cleave, but it's short range, right? So if you have a sniper in the back, well, you can't get it. That's why the zealot has to run with knives so you can take out the sniper that's in the back, right? That's one thing. Or other guns like the needle gun from Hive Scum, well, it doesn't have any cleave. It stops on the target it hits, right? Well, again, with the plasma gun, you don't have that issue. You see a sniper in the back, there's like a couple enemies in front of him. It's not a problem. You just click, it's going to go through a bunch of guys, and it's going to hit the sniper and kill him. So that's the one unique feature of the plasma gun, I think, that's very good, is that it has that cleave, and you definitely want to make use of that cleave. So that's why you don't want to use it into carapace, because I think it reduces the one unique thing about the plasma gun, which is its high range cleave. Anyways, now let's go on with the rest of the build. So I've talked quite a lot about the plasma gun and how I see it being used. You can use it differently. Like, I still use charged attack shots with this, especially that's a good way to increase your heat up. You know, like if you're at 0 heat and you need to quickly and you don't have time to like do this thing, right? Well, you can just do a charge attack shot, especially if there's a lot of enemies. I still think those are worth it in certain situations, and it does help to increase your heat further. But yeah, that's the only thing I'd say with that, is that you can still kind of use it a bit. You can also light attack spam, but again, you're not getting the most value. Like if you just want to light attack spam, you just use the other build, the other blessings and all that on it. All right, primary weapon doesn't really matter. As long as it's something good, I guess, and helps you deal with Carapace. That's the only thing is you need Carapace on your melee weapon. So either a dueling sword or a power sword, whatever. As long as it helps you deal with um, Carapace enemies, because that's the only thing this version of the plasma gun cannot deal with. So yeah. So dueling sword, even combat blade is fine. It's just whatever helps you deal with Carapace fast. I went with the power sword because just like the plasma gun, I think the power sword, the Mark 6, make sure it's the Mark 6 power sword, has the ability to do a lot of high single target damage with its push attack and then overhead like this, right? So the move set is you push attack and, okay, well I didn't charge it, but if you had it charged, well that was also crit, but you get the idea, like it's, like that was no crits and we, like, in 1 second, right? So that's good single target damage, and obviously for hordes you just spam light attacks. Even though the third light attack is not the best because it goes at an angle, it's still pretty decent. Yeah, this is like pretty good horde clear. And so because of that, it's pretty much like the plasma gun where it's good against both hordes and single targets. So that's why I'm taking the power sword. And that's why I have elites on it, because elite stacks with Carapace armored enemies, and it pretty much helps with anything else. Ragers, gunners, shotgunners, whatever, right? So plasma gun is used to take out specialists most of the time. Power sword and plasma gun can take out elites, and power sword pretty much takes out the big guys if I'm not using a crack, which we'll get into a second. The blessings, power cycler, that's like in every single power sword you need that. And then slaughterer. I used to run the whoops, wrong. I used to run brutal momentum. The weak spot kills ignore enemy hit mass. That's huge. I do notice that I'm having a bit harder time cleaving through hordes with this talent here, slaughterer. So I think if you're just looking to increase your horde clear potential, brutal momentum is better on the power sword for horde clearing. But I like slaughterer because, again, if you're in a mixed horde, the 8% strength can stack up to 40%. That stacks 5 times. So you get 40% strength on kill. Now that's not too bad to do in a mixed horde, because in a mixed horde you're gonna have a bunch of these guys, you're gonna have some elites, you know. So you just do this. You've already increased it to 5 times, and then if there's one of the big guys, you have 40% strength. And don't forget, strength not only increases your damage, but it increases your cleave, it increases your stagger, so you're able to do a lot more with slaughter. It's a bit more versatile, which is again kind of going into the Mark 6 versatility. But if you struggle with horde clear, then yeah, I don't know. They're both good blessings, so let's just move on. Curios, I'm running triple toughness right now. I'd like to get a stamina, but I don't have a +3 stamina. That's like a real one, because this is another thing that I found out recently is if you have a 400, and I don't think it was fixed because it was posted like a few weeks ago again, so I think it's still valid. If you have like a 400 or even a 410 power stamina curio, it won't actually be +3 stamina, it will be +2 stamina. But yeah, you can look that online, but basically from what I understand is that in the UI it rounds it up, and in the game it rounds it down. Give me a sec, I got a call here. Anyways, but yeah, that's the thing is, if I would get a 420 power, 430 power, +3 stamina, I would run that. But for now, I'm running triple toughness. I do think the stamina helps it a bit, especially because of skirmisher. You tend to, I mean, if you slide, it's not too bad. But yeah, I think a stamina curio that's actually like a +3 stamina would really help this build. And is moving on to the talents. So this is the talent tree. Yeah, I'm just gonna start from the top. So confirm kill and out for blood. I think just these two alone gives you so much uh toughness replenishment. Now I've seen some guys or some builds online that drop one of these. Sometimes they drop out for blood. Sometimes they drop confirm kill. I don't know which one is better, but it's clearly a lot better than exhilarating takedown unless you're doing a specific weak spot build. As a general rule, the way I rank talents is first is damage and base damage in particular. So I always try and go for stuff that increase your base damage and against the most amount of enemies, right? Now, after that, it's stuff like weak spots and crit hits because crit hits are more RNG. Weak spots, you can kind of control them, but they're harder to pull off because you actually have to take your time to aim. So that's why when I rank talents, I always go for base damage first, then it's stuff for weak points, and then crit chance. Unless you're doing a very specific build that guarantees you to get crit chance, like a weapon specialist build, I wouldn't rely too much on crit chance. All right. Um, but yeah, that's why weak spots. And again, like I said, I'm playing on an old rig, and I'm not getting that high FPS when I play a game. Even on Auric, it's manageable, but I'm still missing a lot of weak spots, and I'll maybe show you in the scoreboard after a match. Anyway, so that's why it's good if you practice getting weak spots, and you have to practice getting weak spots not on stationary targets. I mean, a lot of specialists are going to remain stationary when they fire or whatever, but you got to practice getting them when they're moving, especially like ragers, mutants, like gunners. They move slightly slow, like they don't sprint when they shoot, but when they're moving from one place to another, they are on the move. So anyways, yeah, and then we go one motion. Um, Again, this plays very similar to weapon specialist build because of agile engagement and because you wanna you wanna maintain your heat high, so you wanna switch to your gun to shoot at least one shot or at least charge it back with the alt fire. So you're gonna constantly be switching back and forth, so that's why one motion is pretty good and very much required. Close order drill, and then crack grenades. Um, yeah, I think crack grenades for this build is better than shredders or smoke. And again, I am playing on Auric, so maybe in Havoc, at higher level Havoc, smoke or shredders become better. But I think with the power sword, I have enough horde clear that I don't really need shredders. Plus, I get a voice of command, so you get a lot of crowd control already, so I don't think the shredders are really that good. And again, the plasma gun, even though I'm using it mostly in this build, is built towards sniping specials and ranged elite and all that. In a pinch, like I said, you can still use its charge shots or even just spam light attacks. It's not something I try and do, but when I do need to do that because we're getting overwhelmed, it is better. But again, the blast away or blaze away plus optimized cooling would be better in that situation if you're just spamming light attacks. But this is a bit more versatile. And yeah, and I still, like I said, I still spam those shots. So it is pretty decent at horde clearing. And so that's why I don't really need shredders. Smoke, it's good if there's a lot of ranged specialists or elites, but generally I don't find it's needed in Auric. And so the only thing that is left, and that again this build kind of struggles with, yes, the power sword does help you to clear carapace, but having a crack grenade, it's really good. And again, that also works for unyielding soul monstrosities. Toughness boost and then base damage against elite enemies. Pretty good. I mean, that's what the plasma gun you're gonna be hitting most of the time. Like, that's where you need the damage, right? The most. So yeah, it doesn't apply to all the enemy types, but just hitting this helps you increase your damage against elites, which are the enemy type that is the most common that you're gonna do less damage. Because yes, unyielding enemies have a lot more hit points, but they're not as common as elite enemies. Then Iron Will, it's like the best. Like these two are pretty much considered the best. And then we go Withering Fire. Now this is one I'd say like you could swap between Field Improvisation and Withering Fire. Since again I'm mostly using this with light attacks because, like I said, charge attacks are good like once or twice per game when you have the opportunity or when you need like a big power blast. But like light attacks are going to be like 90 or 80% of your usage, or maybe even 90% of your usage. And I do think Withering Fire, the 50% range cleave, is worth it. If there's any build or any gun for the veteran that you want to take Withering Fire for, it's definitely the plasma gun. This gives it essentially 9 cleave. And 9 cleave, you have, the way I think about this talent is that this is up to maybe 100 or 200% more damage potentially. Why? Because if you look at the hit masses of some of most non-carapace elite enemies, they're like around 5. So 9 cleave gives you another elite. Or, and again, for specialists, it's about 2 hit mass on average. So you can get like through 1 elite and 2 specialists, right? So that's why I think Withering Fire is worth taking, because it does allow you to get to punch like through 1 more enemies, like the Ragers, the not the armored one, but these ones here, the Drag Ragers. They have a hit mass of, what is it, 8. So you can punch through 1 more. You can punch through 1 more Rager and then hit something behind it, right? So that's why I think Withering Fire. And again, since the nerf, this is probably the best. The plasma gun is the best usage of Withering Fire. But if you feel like you don't need it, because here's the other thing, you think, oh, I'm gonna hit a bunch of enemies and this is gonna like stack up a lot. It's hard to tell how much Withering Fire actually affects, because there's no real way to see, oh, did I hit like 5 guys or did I only hit 2 guys? What I can say is for sure when you're in a horde in an open area, you're not going to be hitting like 5 guys. You're on average probably going to be hitting like 3, maybe 4 guys with 1 light attack. And you don't need Withering Fire for that. The only situation I can see where this becomes more relevant is in like those hallways or corridors, and there's a horde coming at you and there's like a big line. Which again, is it better to use light attacks or to use a charge shot? I don't know. But again, I'd say this one is interchangeable with Field Improvisation. Field Improvisation helps your team more. But I think Withering Fire is like, again, a kind of like a potential 200% damage increase, because you're multiplying your hits into a few more enemies with this. Then we'll go Catch a Breath, Survivalist. That's pretty standard too. And again, with the low ammo and the bad ammo economy, or the bad ammo efficiency on the plasma gun, like if you compare the plasma gun to any kind of las guns with Shock Trooper, like las guns never run out of ammo, so you could drop Survivalist and go with Fire Team. But the plasma guns, the bolt pistols or bolt guns, the revolver, they have low ammo. And yes, even though they do high ammo per shot, you're still going to want to be shooting a lot of shots, because there's just so many enemies you need to go and shoot. So that's why you need Survivalist. And then Demolition Stockpile, because again, that's pretty good here. And then I'm taking Grenade Tinker just to be able to one-shot Crushers with a Crack Grenade. In Auric, I know that in Havoc 40 they have way more health, but if you're able to apply focus targets, it kind of helps it out even more. Then Voice of Command, this is the best. Out of all these 3, it's the best generalist one. And then let's go on the left side here, so range damage. I'm mostly going here just for precision strikes, plus 30% weak spot damage. Now again, I've said earlier that I don't want to rely on weak spots. Well, that is, I don't want to rely on ranged weak spots, because, well, again, I won't be able to show it in here in the Psychanium. It doesn't show. I'll have to leave the Psychanium, but the ranged weak spot, my ranged weak spot rate is not great, so that's not good, but the melee one sits around 50%. So again, actually I don't even need to be in the Psychanium, because I'm not really showing you anything. I'm just talking about the build. But basically, this one mostly affects my melee damage, and because of that, well, I'm getting, it's as if on half of my melee attacks, I'm doing 30% more damage. I don't know, man. Seems pretty good to me, you know? So I'm not taking it for the ranged, I'm taking it for the melee. And I do think it makes a difference. Again, there's no real way to see how much it actually works, except for the fact that you're looking at, like, if you have a mod like a scoreboard mod, you're able to see your weak spot percentage. And again, when I looked at mine, it was like 50%. I'll show you after I finish on about the build and I exit the Psychanium. Then Demolition Team, because we do want to go for focus target, and it's the best out of everything in here. Tactical awareness, toughness, bring it down so you get damage against ogrins and monstrosities. Again, I don't really recommend using this plasma gun setup for boss damage. If you want to do that, you want to use the other one, the Blaze Away version. And this is the build I have with the Blaze Away. Notice I'm not taking any key. I can talk about this build too, but I want to talk about this one because I think this one is a little bit stronger than the other one. Than the Blaze Away. The Gets Hot Rising Heat is, in my opinion, a little bit stronger than the Blaze Away one. And then Focus Target. The main thing with Focus Target here is this, Redirect Fire. That's why you want to get the Focus Fire for the 6 stacks, because if you get 6 stacks of Redirect Fire, that's 15% damage. Now, 15% damage, and the uptime on this is pretty high. It's pretty much as if you always have, it's like twice the bonus of Fire Team. Like Fire Team is 7.5 for you and your allies in coherency. Redirect Fire is 15% for you and your allies in coherency, right? And here's the thing, if you focus fire, like, how do I explain this? So let's say you focus fire the first enemy. You always have your 6 stacks at the beginning of the game, well, at least by the time you get to your first enemies. You ping a specialist, you ping an elite, whatever gets killed, right? Then everybody gets this, redirect fire. At least hoping everybody gets this because you're in coherency, let's say. Then the next enemy, even though you didn't apply the full 6 stacks, this will refresh. So I don't know if I can show it in a good way here. I don't know, I guess we're just gonna have to do this. So I did not apply all the stacks, but as you see, my focus fire is refreshed. I got 5 stacks applied to him. I got 2 stacks applied to him. As you see in the bottom left, like, I'm getting like 2 stacks applied. And my focus fire is the first one. As you see, it says 6. It just keeps getting refreshed. So that's why it's, and the uptime, I'll show you, well, here I can show you right now because I think this mod actually works in the Psychanium. Yeah. The uptime is pretty high. As you can see, 76, almost 77% of the combat and 95% of that was with at max stacks. I did some missions where I had even higher, like 83, or this one, because I believe this one we did pretty well. And as you see, like 88.5% and like 95.6 of that was like it was at 6 stacks, right? So this has a very high uptime, so it's basically like a free 15% base damage for your whole team. So it's like better than this aura, you know? Yeah, that's the best thing about focus target. And then of course, when there's a monstrosity, when there's a captain, a boss, whatever, like you want to stack up your 6 stacks, and then you do that, because then after that, then it's like 34% extra damage for everybody. So it's not too bad, you know. So that's with the that's the focus target. All right, and then on the right side we have 15% melee damage, reciprocity. Again, I think it's the best one out of all of these, because it helps you bring your crit chance for your plasma gun for Gets Hot a bit higher. I just want to talk about that real quick because I feel like I didn't talk it. The most you can get with just the blessing for your crit chance. I have a mod here in the middle that shows me my crit chance. We're at 20%. So let me just, I guess I could just shoot to increase it further. The most you can get is at 91% is 60. It actually increases to 65 when you fire, as you see there. So it's about 65%, let's say. Because I believe Veteran has base 10% crit chance. Plasma Gun probably has like 5% crit chance. And then the Blessing gives it another 50% crit chance, so you're up to 65 crit chance. 65 crit chance, it's not too bad, but it's not the best. You know, it's almost a coin flip, so it could be improved, and that's where Reciprocity can help you bump it up. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get full stacks of this, because again, if we look at my uptime history here, this mission we actually failed, and my stacks of Reciprocity was really bad. But if we look at a mission where we actually succeeded, you know, it does help a little bit. You know, it's like 5. Let's say on average you get 2 stacks, right? Like it says here, average stacks 2 point. Let's say 2-3 stacks. Let's say 2 stacks. That's 10%. You're going up to 75%. Now at max stacks, you go up to 90% crit chance. And then if you have like another guy in your team that has like an aura that increases your crit chance, you can go up to 95, even 100% crit chance. But again, that's like best case scenario, right? That's like all your stacks of Reciprocity. That's like full stacks of Gets Hot. And that's like with another guy boosting your crit chance even further. That's like best case scenario. I think at like 90% crit chance, it's pretty much a guaranteed crit every time. But even then, I think overall yeah, it helps, but it's also helping your melee, obviously. And then this Verado, because it's node you have to get, and then Agile Engagement and Skirmisher. Why do I take these two? Well, because 25% extra damage, 25% extra damage, and it's base damage, right? So 25% extra base damage for your ranged and melee. Actually, that I guess that doesn't count dots, but this build doesn't really have any dots because we're not using bleed, we're not using burn or whatever. So you don't really care about damage over time effects like fire or burn stacks or bleed stacks or whatever. And then Skirmisher for 25% extra base damage. So now exploit weakness can be pretty good. And if you want to increase your damage, maybe drop redirect fire, or not redirect, maybe drop focus fire, I guess, and get exploit weakness. Okay. The problem is what I've noticed is I'm only getting like 30, yeah, around 35% crit chance with the power sword, and I think that was with a 5% crit chance increase on the perk. So the perk that gives you 5% crit chance. And I was getting about 35% crit chance total, or on average, not total, but on average, because you can increase it higher with Desperado. And 35% 35% uptime, I mean, for that talent, for that passive here. It gets outweighed by the really high uptime of this. So even though this is only 15%, compared to 20. This one helps your whole team, and 2 is active pretty much like 80% of the time. Whilst this one is active, at least for me. Now you can use higher crit weapons like Combat Blade. Like if you use a Combat Blade or even Dwelling Sword, I think it has a pretty good crit chance. And especially if you get some of the blessings, like what are they called, like Riposte or something, or what's the one that increases? Yeah, Riposte. Right, or the Combat Blade, same thing. I think it has even higher base crit chance, and then you get something like Riposte. You can definitely go for exploit weakness. I'd probably drop like Focus Fire and go with this, because your crit chance is going to be so high that you're probably going to get at least 60% of uptime on this, and then at that point, that 20% damage does overtake the 15% damage here. But again, because I'm using the power sword, I have to. The crit chance is just not high enough for me to justify going for 1 point here. It's better to just go full on focus target, redirect fire in this. But yeah, that's pretty much it for what I think is the best way. I mean, again, this is my opinion and based on what I've on the theory and all that. So let's exit the Psychanium now, and I'll show you some stats from some of the games here. I'll show you the games where we actually fully completed the mission, or we got pretty close to the end, because obviously that gives you a more general overall picture instead of just dying halfway through the map, you know? So let's see here. Well, if it would want to load, I guess. Let me just give it a second. There we go. Now this one we did fail halfway through the mission, so I'm not going to show you this one, but Enclave and Barras here. If we look at our crit percent, as you see, Plasma Gun 49.7, almost 50% crits. So half my shots with the Plasma Gun here, I critted, and that benefits from Rising Heat, from also Gets Hot, you know, so, but mainly Gets Hot here. And as you see, my melee weapon crit is 28.2. That's because, again, I don't know, I wasn't using Reciprocity as well. We'll see the uptime for this match too. But yeah. And then weak spot percentage, this is the other thing I was talking about. As you see, melee weapon was 58% weak spot. So, again, that's why I take that talent for the extra 30% weak spot damage. Not for the gun, because the gun, as you see, I'm pretty bad at aiming for weak spot, only 10%. But for the power sword, it's very easy to get weak spots in a horde, and you're just like getting more damage. Even with the against single targets like maulers or crushers, again with that push attack, stab into an overhead, it's very easy to get weak spots with that attack combo against like tougher targets. And then the 30% weak spot actually does make a difference, because you could say, well, in a horde, what is 30% weak spot damage gonna do, you know? But when you're fighting maulers or crushers, it does come into play there. So this was the Enclave and Barras missions, just so I know which one to look for in the uptime mod. So it was this one, which I believe is the one I showed. And yeah, again, I've talked about, like, even Skirmisher here, pretty good uptime on this. But like I talked about, it says target down. I think it's bugged. The uptime mod has some bugs. It's actually redirect fire. You can see the icon here. It's the correct icon, but the description is the wrong one. But we've already talked about this. This comes to about 12% overall. Like if we quickly pull out the calculator here. So, oh, dumbass. All right, 83.7% uptime in combat, and it's at 9 stacks for like 79.5%, and it's an increase of 15. Like I'm getting almost 12% value for the entire combat duration. All right, so if I compare it to my the other one, the one that if you get a crit, forgot the name of it, but if we compare it to Exploit Weakness, which again, like I said, was about 35% uptime, it was giving me like 7% value in the duration of the combat. So as you see, that's more value. So let's quickly go back to here, because I want to show you the rest of the stuff. Is pretty standard stuff. Reciprocity a bit low here. Yeah, I mean, I try to make sure I slide and do all that, and the stockpile a bit low as well. But that's usually a symptom of the crack grenades, I find, because if I'm using shredders, especially with like more focused grenade veteran build, I will have demolition stockpile at like 90% or above uptime, because I'm always throwing those shredders, right? There's a horde, there's a mixed horde, whatever, just throw them, you just do damage. With the cracks, you're kind of saving them for those really big Curios moments when there's a big crusher train or a boss or whatever, so that's why the uptime on demolition stockpile is a lot lower, and tactical awareness and all that. But I want to show you the plasma gun here. So I was using it like a third of the time, so a third of the time between the power sword and the plasma gun. But as you can see, pretty good uptime on the blessings, and more importantly, pretty good uptime on the max stacks. So at 5 stacks, 34%. So, and that's why my crit chance was like almost 50% with the plasma gun. Let me look at another one real quick. Another session, which we again, I guess we can go Dark Communion here. But I also want to show you one where I did with the Blaze Away build to give you an idea of what's different. Let's go into Dark Communion here. I believe it was still the same build. Let me verify this. Oh no, that was, see, that's why I checked, because that was the Grenade Veteran build. That's something else. Archivan Sycorax here. Is that with the plasma gun? Yeah, and it's the Gets Hot version. So again, if we look here, the crit percent, this one was a bit lower. I did not try to use that kind of, to charge it up for the heat, you know, like as I've said, you can use the charged attack just to increase your heat. I didn't use it as much, but we still got 40% crit chance. And the melee one, again, this was about 34%. I don't think this was with the crit modifier on it, no. I guess I just got more value from reciprocity. I guess we'll have to take a look. This is the Archivum Sycorax, not the second one. Okay, just so I remember. Again, on the weak spots for Power Sword, 58% seems like a pretty constant thing, and for this is around 10-11% as we've seen in the previous report there from Enclave and Barras. Let's look at the uptime now. So Archivum Sycorax, not the first, but this one. And again, as you see, target down, and I mean I've showed it before as well. Very high uptime. Skirmisher, I had a lot more uptime on this one than the rest here. Reciprocity, I guess it was a bit higher. Was it higher? 48, max stacks 26, actually 2.64. Yeah, it was actually lower, but I got a higher crit chance on my melee, so I don't know how I did that, but whatever, I guess. But I see Demolition Stockpile even lower, so again, I'm not really throwing my crack grenades that far. And then the Plasma Gun, as I was saying, I did not use that kind of tech to, or tech, or whatever you want to call it, the little trick to maintain your heat as much, so I did not have as high stacks, like 2.91 average, and Clavin Barris was like 3.55 average. So let me see if I can find one where I used the Blaze Away. Was this with the Blaze Away? No, that was still Gets Hot. Okay, quickly, I mean, we can quickly look at it. 34 to 30. This was definitely before I knew about using your charge attack to maintain the heat, but I still got 34% crit on my plasma gun. And you see the melee is back to 30. Was this with the 5? Yeah, this was this was when I was running the 5% melee crit chance, and we even have lower crit chance than so it's not really reliable. That's what I mean with the crit chance on the power sword. Like if you run, like I said, combat blade or riposte or whatever, you can get pretty high crit chance, and like at a very stable level. Not like the power sword where you're like getting sometimes more, sometimes less, but it's always like in the 30s or low 30s or whatever. Weak spot percent though, again around 50% for the melee weapon. This one a little bit less weak spot on average than the other one. This one was Hab Trico. Let me see the uptime mod, and then I will do one last. We're gonna look at one last one, and I will. I don't know if I will attach it to this video because this video is kind of long already. I can feel it, but I might either add some gameplay for a full match using this build, or I might upload another video that showcases this build in a full match, so you're not just seeing like reports from post matches, but you're also seeing actual gameplay. So that's something I'll have to do, but again, I don't know if I'll attach it to the end of this video because it's already getting too long, or I'll upload a second video on it. Anyways, Hab Draco here again. Redirect fire, not target down, pretty high uptime with max stacks, and then the rest again, stockpile for cracks around 50%. Shredders probably higher. We had a lot better. We had even higher stacks of reciprocity here. we had better reciprocity uptime with at even higher stacks, and we actually got lower crit chance on our power sword. Interesting. Um, and again, the plasma gun with the high heat, we're getting, this one was actually a lot better than the Archive and Sycorax, where we got 2.91 average. This one got 3.4, but Enclave and Barris is still the highest, 3.55, and that's where I really tried to use the charge to keep my heat as high as possible. Yeah. Uh, the last one is, like I said, if I can find one where I'm using the Blaze Away one instead. Let me see. Oh, well, this one we failed, so let's not do this one. Let's see, Refinery Delta 17 maybe? Okay, this is the one with the Blaze Away. Now, as you see, we did a lot of damage. We did more damage than all of these guys, well, except for the other missionary, and we did more damage than, on average, than my um, than the Gets Hot plus Rising Heat. Maybe it's because the mission was longer, it's hard to tell, but let's look at the percentages. Obviously, this time, because we're not using Rising Heat, 12% crit chance, so you're not getting your value for that. You're getting the value from Blaze Away, just light attack spamming. Weak spot percent pretty low. This one was again with the 5% crit chance and the Power Sword Mark 6. Again, a bit lower on this than, but yeah, it's around 50%. And again, this is another thing too to keep in mind is this is what I said, that you're gonna see lower weak spot um, percentage on the Blaze Away version because you're not as accurate, right? When you're blazing away, when you're light attack spamming with optimized cooling to get all 12 shots in, and with like 7 of those shots or 8 of those shots, my bad, like 8 out of 12 shots have 40% strength applied to them, right? You're not going to be hitting weak spots as well as the Rising Hot plus gets the Rising Heat plus gets Hot Blessings, which which you can, obviously the value comes from getting those crits, and you can actually and you're actually more accurate at hitting headshots. Anyways, but yeah, and so this one was the Refinery Delta 17. We can look at the uptime real quick, and this is probably where I'll end this segment of the video, where I'll stop the recording. So it was Refinery Delta 17 here. Again, with Skirmisher, this is using the other build where I don't use Focus Target at all. And this is what I'm saying with Exploit Weakness giving me like 35% uptime. And this is worse than Focus Target over the course of the entire combat, of course. Like, Focus Target, even though you're getting less damage increase, you're having like much higher uptime, right? Yeah, the rest of the stuff, it seems pretty basic. Reciprocity, a bit low. Yeah. But then what I want to show you is the Blaze Away plus the optimized cooling. Obviously, these kind of go hand in hand together because light attack spamming. But as you can see, a lot lower uptime on this. We also were using the plasma gun a lot less than the power sword. So with the other version that gets hot and rising heat, it's more closer to 30, maybe 33%, and this is 60% here. Oh. Well, that sometimes happens when we got a crash, so that's power. So the mod I use is called Power DI for the scoreboard, because I don't want to get too much into it, but basically the scoreboard mod is really nice, but it's really outdated, so you need to look for community patches and all that crap. And Power DI is just more updated. It works right right out of the box, so I don't have to go around looking for community patches. But there is some performance and memory leak issues with it, and people have complained about that on the mod page on Nexus Mods. So that sometimes happens when you open too many of those sessions. If you're looking through many of your recorded sessions, you will run into a memory leak issue and the game will crash. Even though I increased my memory for Lua scripts, I increased it from the standard 1 GB to 2 GB. It still crashes. But anyways, yeah, I was just gonna end it here then because the game crashed and I don't want to reopen it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my build, and yeah, if If you have any other questions, or you think the plasma gun can be built in a better, more optimal way, let me know. But that's kind of the two builds that I've been trying out, and I think the Gets Hot plus Rising Heat, if you're able to maintain your high heat, if you're doing all that, it's more versatile. You're getting more value per shot. I actually don't run the extra ammo on it because I end up not really needing that much ammo if I'm getting more value per shot. The Blaze Away, I do need the extra ammo node because I'm just spamming so many shots to make the full use of Blaze Away. Otherwise, if you're just shooting like the thing with Blaze Away and optimized cooling is if you're just shooting like one or two shots at like a couple like elites or whatever, like you're not getting the full benefit of Blaze Away, and then you're like, again, my main point is to make it so any plasma gun build gets as much usage out of everything the plasma gun brings. And so that's why I went back with Rising Heat and plus Gets Hot. But let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.